Hello guys, and welcome to the review of the Nikon D3300. So how has it been for me having this DSLR as my daily driver for a year? Well, let's find out. So first off, let's run down the specs of this DSLR. Inside we get a brilliant 24.2 megapixel CMOS, which is cropped, sensor with the DSLR, which uses Nikon's X-Speed 4 image processor. We also have an ISO range from 100 to 12,800, which is also expandable to 25,600. As well as that, the DSLR can also shoot continuously at 5 frames per second. Display wise, we have a 3-inch 102 ppi non-tiltable or movable non-touchscreen display that can be used as a viewfinder if needed, with 100% viewfinder coverage in live view mode. The display brightness can also be adjusted as well, with the display outputting around 300 to 350 nits. On the rear as well, you can also see our main button controls, which can be used to move around the menu systems with Nikon's simple and great UI. As well as that, there's a built-in guide mode and a built-in guide in the DSLR. This means that if you're not sure what any of the buttons or options mean, it will tell you directly in the camera. This is a great feature for beginners and amateurs. In terms of I/O, there is a remote input and also a 3.5mm microphone jack. Below that is a USB port which supports AV out directly to a TV, and also a mini HDMI, which again supports output to a TV. All of these ports are also covered by a basic rubber sealed flap that does offer some minor weather sealing. On the grip side, there is our one SD card slot that accepts up to 64GB of memory and must be class 10 or higher. For lens options, you can use DX and FX type lenses. Just note that for full frame lenses, the focal length gets times by the crop factor, which is 1.5 on this DSLR. So for example, if I bought a Sigma 150 to 600, that is a full frame lens, so I times that focal length by 1.5. That gives me an equivalent 900mm lens with this crop sensor DSLR. In terms of video quality, you can record at 1080p at 30 FPS for 20 minutes, while in 60 FPS you have 10 minutes of recording time. You can also record only in 720p at 60 FPS. Funnily enough, we are actually recording this video using a separate D3300 running at 1080p 30 FPS. The camera also supports shooting in RAW, .nef files, but also you can shoot in JPEG, from JPEG Fine to JPEG Basic. The lower you go down, the smaller the file size will be. So what do I think about when I use this DSLR in the real world? First of all, battery life. The Nikon has an estimated battery life of around 700 shots, in which Nikon do claim. I don't say that this is very much true. On an average battery life, I can get probably double or near to 1,000 shots per battery. As well as that, the build quality and grip, etc, stuff like that, of this DSLR is really high quality for my standards anyway. It's built out of a hard plastic and does a really great job. The grip especially I find is a really great part about this DSLR. It handles really well in my hand and feels very much comfortable compared to Canon grips, which I found feel quite cheap in a way. Although the build quality isn't that great when it comes to weather sealing. The only weather sealing that I can actually see is on the I/O. So don't expect to take this out in heavy rain, but in light showers I think it will do quite fine, as I once had a little incident when I was on shoot and I got drenched in heavy rain. Now onto my positives about this DSLR. First of all is a simple UI, or a simple operating system on this DSLR. Nikon have designed their OS very simply for beginners and amateurs and possibly professionals, incorporating a guide but also keeping the UI simple. Nikon also don't try and make the UI very complicated as well, allocating all different things very simply, different categories in different places. Also the UI isn't very cluttered about, so you don't have to search for different settings, it's all there in different categories. Button placement on Nikon as well is really great, although there are 2 buttons which I'll talk about later on in which I'd like Nikon to change in the future. Overall, buttons are quite great. At the top you have your mode dial. I typically stay in manual for most of my shooting, and I have been for a really long time. You do also have a mixture of scene settings and auto settings for different stuff like sports, landscapes, kids, and as well as that you also have an effects mode in which I wouldn't really use. You also have a guide specific mode as well, where you can set up the camera to what you want by telling the camera what you want to do, etc. As well as that, the size of the DSLR isn't a issue as well. For me, I would like it a bit more bigger. As for me, I think I've grown out of the size. Getting a bit too small, I think. My hands are growing, so I need to upgrade to like a 7200 or something like that. In terms of weight as well, I think it's a bit too light. With a battery in, it weighs 662 grams. So as a result of that, I like having a heavy DSLR. So I've added a quick release plate to it, making it a bit more heavier so it feels like I actually have something to handle. As well as that, with a lens on, it's a bit more better for me to carry and hold compared to it being light. But if lightness is an option, definitely go for this DSLR. Now we go on to some of my negatives. Now some of these are just minor issues that I have a problem with, but for some of you guys, whether you're like a wildlife photographer for example, this can sometimes be a bit of an issue. The noise of the shutter can be a bit loud depending on what shutter speed you are. The maximum shutter speed that this has is 1/4000th of a second, but still that is quite loud. Nikon have also put a quiet mode, in quotations quiet, which makes the shutter speed slower. So that means if you shoot and pan at the same time, you're going to get a bit of motion blur because the shutter is made slower to make it quiet. But still it's relatively loud. For some of you that may not be an issue, and certainly for me it's just one of these issues that, you know, I thought I'd point out for any wildlife photographers out there. As well as that, you don't really have any precision with your ISO. You can go from 100 to 200 to 400, 800. So you can go in different stops, but you can't actually go precisely like you want ISO 160. You can't do that, which I know for this range of DSLRs you won't need it. Now for me it might be because I've got big hands, but I would like Nikon to put a flash lock in this. If you look on the mode dial, there is a flash off mode in auto, but I don't shoot in auto, I shoot in manual. And the trouble is, to change my ISO, there is a function button at the edge of the left hand side near the flash, and just above that function button is the flash button, and it's quite irritating because I press it and my flash pops up, making me look like an idiot in some situations, making me look like I'm in auto. Now I'd like a lock completely where you can just say I don't want the flash to pop up at all, eliminating the accidental push of a button sending your flash flying upwards. As well as that, I'd also like a bigger function button. The flash button is bigger, but the function button is tiny. Come on Nikon, change that. At least have the function button bigger. Well, for me anyway. But my overall opinions about this DSLR are very positive. I am absolutely blown away by this DSLR, and I have achieved very great photos from this DSLR in this year. I'm now going to go over to some of the photos and we're going to have a little review of them and see how they are. But yeah, I don't really have any big negatives about this DSLR. It's a great DSLR for everybody in a way. But anyway, let's get on to some photos. Anyway guys, that's the review of the D3300. If you want to go and see more unboxings or stuff like that of this DSLR, have a look in the top right hand corner in the card section and also on the screen. As well as that, you can also go and see the behind the lens playlist so you can see how this camera sounds, performs in the real world, etc. But anyway guys, if you did enjoy, please click like down below and also comment what did you like about it as well. Anyway guys, have a wonderful rest of your day. I'll be seeing you soon. Take care. Bye bye.